transitioning into adulthood. So we're going to be touching up on kind of where we're at right now. So I'm 24 right now. I'm almost 25. Santi, you're going to be 23 this year. And yeah, just talking about kind of how we've been feeling in our 20s, and just kind of talking about, especially like where I'm coming at right now from this is like I'm in my mid 20s now, and I think there's definitely a lot that can be talked about, like how I feel now between now and when I graduated college and when I graduated high school, and just kind of like the differences in that. But as well, we wanted to talk about our kind of growing relationships with our parents as we've grown older as well, because I think parent relationships can always get really complicated, especially when you're still in the transitional age youth age range, which for those who don't know, we get this question asked all the time, is like, what does Tay Radio Marin even stand for? Who's Tay? And it's like, oh well, Tay is just it stands for transitional age youth, so it's youth from, well, actually what's a little confusing is that I think every state has their own way of defining the age range, but typically for us, at least here in California, transitional age youth is 16 to 25. So, with that out of the way, though, right before we delve into it, I actually wanted to start with a quick little question asking you, Santi, is what movies are you looking forward to this year? There's a lot of good movies coming out.
That's right. I'm looking forward for Kung Fu Panda 4.
I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about it.
I have a weird feeling that I know it's going to be good, but if we compare all of them, I don't know if I hope it adds on to it and not what do you say? It doesn't make me like the other ones better. You never know. DreamWorks. It's DreamWorks, right?
Yeah, DreamWorks.
I love lately they've been releasing such amazing films, from Puss in Boots.
I heard good things about Puss in Boots.
You haven't watched Puss in Boots?
I haven't watched it yet. I need to watch it.
Oh my God, no way.
I've heard like so many good things about that movie, but no, I have not watched it yet.
Puss in Boots I really like that film. It was really, really good.
And it has a good villain in it too, huh? The villain's really good.
DreamWorks has great villains. They have some really, from Kung Fu Panda and other ones, that they have really, really good villains. What's another film?
I'm looking forward to Deadpool 3.
Oh, that's another one. I'm really scared of that one.
Why are you scared of it?
Because I don't want to be disappointed.
I feel like, I don't know, both Deadpool 1 and 2 were really good. This is
back the Wolverine,
yeah.
Which is what I'm like, I don't want you guys to mess it up.
Yeah.
I think he ended on a great, on
a great run. He had a good run. Yeah.
So the fact that he's back kind of makes me nervous. But
yeah, we'll see. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely looking.
Cool movies coming out.
Yeah. Again, Kung Fu Panda 4 is out now, so I definitely want to go watch that at some point. But thanks for sharing. So moving right into it, I wanted to start off with kind of asking both ourselves this question is, so, I was, like I said, I'm 24 right now, about to be 25, and I'm just looking at myself now and I'm just being like, dang, like I feel like I've grown and changed so much in 3 years. So 3 years ago was 2021, right? Because we're in 2024. No, closer to 2020. Closer to, depends on who you ask. Anyways, 3 years ago, we were still in the pandemic. Like the pandemic was still a thing. And I think, during that time, a lot of us were still, not going out as much. We were kind of locked inside. So there was like not a lot of growing going on, if that makes sense. At least that's how it felt to me. Like I wasn't like growing or changing. But what I've come to realize is that I actually was, even though I was locked inside there, staying at home, I still felt that there was a lot of me that was changing in terms of like my emotions, the way that I meet people. And I think the big one is just like my friend groups was changing, like the people that I was still communicating with. I don't know if you want to add to any of what I'm saying there.
No, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, okay. So for me, I think the biggest thing that I think that's kind of really changed me is this job. Is just being here at the studio, being here at the Multicultural Center of Marin, and really like indulging into what all the people I've met. Like after the pandemic was over, like in 2022, when things really started rolling out, I hit the ground running with just meeting so many different people in person. And I think that's because, again, the pandemic made us like not talk to so many people at first, but then once we had the chance to, like, everyone wanted to talk with each other, right? Like, I felt like there was a lot. Now we're in a time where there's even more people wanting to socialize or more people going out, just because of how basically we had 2 years of no contact with each other. So with the connections that I've made, the connections that I've felt throughout these 3 years now, it's like they've helped shaped who I am, what I believe in, what I look like, what I like look into like as my future goals for myself. One of them being like a big example is like Miguel, Devin, the filmmakers that we've had on this show. Again, meeting people like Moy, Glenda, Jenny, all these great people around us in the community here in Marin, especially like meeting all these artists, all these entrepreneurs, all these business owners. That to me is like something I've been needing to see for like been needing, to like recognize and see, okay, these people are doing this, I can do it too. Right. So yeah. But
yeah, it's a great question. I was 19 years old 3 years ago.
Wow.
But I think we're kind of in the same, I guess, boat, because we experienced the pandemic and then working here at the organization. I mean, 3 years ago, what was it? 2021?
Yeah, I'm saying 2021, 2022. 2021, yeah.
So 2020, I graduated from high school. 2021, I was trying to go to college during the pandemic. It was really hard for me.
Oh, so that was the period where you were actually thinking of going to college?
Yeah, because I graduated June 2020.
Right.
And then we started our semester, what January? Wait. When?
No, fall semester.
Which was?
August. Usually August.
Yeah.
Sometimes September.
So I ended up going to comm. But it was really hard for me. I mean, I stayed there for a semester, and because I had a scholarship and all of that, which was really helpful. But it was really hard for me to connect with people, like just staring at the screen, and which we had kind of towards the end of high school for my senior year, but college was a different level.
Right. This is another aspect that I completely glossed over. I was still in college too during 2021. Okay. I graduated in 2021, but again, it was tough because, like you're saying, we were glued to our computers because we were all through Zoom. A lot of the classes were on Zoom.
Yeah. And that ultimately kind of led to me not wanting to continue school, which was really hard, because my deal breaker was taking stats. And it was like we only had our professor on Monday, and it was just to check in. You want to ask questions, but you kind of took the course by yourself. And one thing that I'm not the greatest at is math. Like I'll get good at it, but I need someone to explain it to me, and I can get through it. But point is that kind of just made my decision, and I took a really big leap of not going to school, so dropping out. That was really hard for me. I felt like I was failing a lot of people. I know it was a dream of my mom's, especially my mom's, for me to go to college and and graduate, and that was something that I was letting go of. Yeah. And that was really hard. And I think we can kind of connect with our second part of the show, talking about kind of our dynamic with our parents. But I made the choice of not going. And it really hurt me as well, making that decision, because I was in a battle of like, I need to go because my family sacrificed so much, and I don't go. It kind of just doesn't fit or make sense. But then I became part of Tay, and Tay kind of really opened my eyes to a lot of things that I don't think I would have been exposed to in another way, Yeah. So Tay became of that, and then helping my family and this organization for the past 3 years, I've had a lot of growth. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Douglas specifically, our former executive director, he really believed in me and said, you have a lot in you, and I'm willing to give you a shot. And that means a lot, as a 19-year-old. And he saw a lot in me, and then which is why I became, the social media coordinator here. But within those transition, I always wanted to be involved in art in school. That's what I wanted to go to school for. But I didn't go to school for it, but I've been getting experience, meeting Chris Nunez, who is our executive. No,
director. Our director of marketing
and communications. Being a mentee from him has been the greatest because he's a graphic designer, and it has helped me with understanding graphic design, marketing, and I feel like I didn't go to school. Agreed, and that's totally correct. But I've been getting the experience that you would get normally after you graduate, which is very unique. So there's definitely been a lot of growth from 19-year-old me to 22-year-old me. I've had a lot of learning experiences, a lot of challenges that have helped me personally and professionally.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think for me, when I was at school, again, 2021, I was still in school. I graduated, but it didn't feel like I graduated because of the virtual graduation, which really sucked. But luckily in 2022, I actually did get an in-person graduation. So shout out to SF State for doing that for me. But again, even in 2021, when I graduated, I just felt like, okay, now what's next? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I was in this job, I'm doing this job, like here at the Multicultural Center, I had it, but I hadn't been full-time yet. Mm-hmm. But then I became full-time, and then I was like, okay, now I can really dedicate my time to Tay, dedicate my time to all the other radio programs and the studio that we're in right now. And I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity because I'm comparing myself. I don't know if you do this a lot. I do this a lot, but I compare a lot. I compare myself I compare myself a lot to my friends and seeing where they're at because we're all the same age. At least most of my friends were all relatively the same age.
Dangerous territory.
I compare to, so where are they at and where am I at? Mm-hmm. And then there's some of my friends right now who are still in college and have been in community college for like 5 years, and they haven't even transferred to a new university. And in the back of my mind, I know they're going through their own stuff and they're doing the thing, but I'm also at the back of my mind like what is their goals? You know what I mean? At least with my like, I'm talking about my friend group from school, like from high school through middle school, like my OG friend group. I love them all, but it's just that I feel like with them, it's just like none of them really have the kind of like, I don't really talk to them about my growth or talk to them about my goals or any of that stuff. I actually have other friends that I talk to about that stuff too. I know I just stated like two different things there, but I guess to start, I wanted to ask you, well, do you compare yourself to your other friends, seeing where they're at?
Funny you ask, because I actually don't.
You don't?
I do not, because I learned this through track, and it's one of the greatest things that I've ever learned. And shout out to Coach Ron, who really put the perspective on me. And we were racing, and so when you're doing track or cross country, you're racing with a lot of people. Yeah. And their goal is, like, the main goal is to be the first one to finish. That's kind of everybody's mindset. But Coach Ron came in, and he had a very different way of looking at the sport. And his method of making us grow our PRs to get better and better, it was his saying was, you're competing as a whole. Agreed. Yeah. But the race you're actually competing is individual. And he says, if you're looking at your partner and saying, oh, I'm this far away from that person, this far away that person, he said that you're in the wrong race. And his idea was that you have to be looking at how you did. So the previous race, what was your PR time? Was it 2:06? Okay. How can you get to 2:04? How can you get... So when he had that perspective, completely changed for me, because I realized, and that's why I said it's dangerous territory, because when I compare myself with others, I can do damage to myself if I'm not mentally prepared for it. So you have to be very mentally prepared when you're looking at others, because it can do two things: bring you down or lift you up. Yeah. And for me, sometimes I'm not mentally prepared for it. So I have to look at how I'm doing, and comparing myself from, exactly what your question was. How were you 3 years ago? Am I going better or am I going down? If I'm going up, then for me, it's okay, I'm doing good. If I'm going, down, then it's like,
I love that. Yeah, no, I love that a lot.
But that's just for me because I've learned my lesson. When I compare myself to other people, I can really, really hurt myself.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to mentally take care of your mind,
Yeah, no, that's all true. I agree, like what you said about comparing yourself in 3 years and saying like, am I up or am I down? Like I can safely say for myself, I'm super more up than I was 3 years ago, wholeheartedly. Super more up, super just doing much better. I think both mentally, both in what I am doing, my goals, reaching my goals, all of that stuff, it's been going so much better. And a big factor of, and it, we don't really I don't think, personally for me, I don't give myself enough props sometimes.
Oh, that's a big one too.
It's just like, cause I don't like getting like, I don't know, I just have like a bad battle with like getting too much like, oh, you did really good, like you should really continue, like, sometimes I don't believe in myself enough or like believe that I accomplished something until like other people start saying it or something, you know what I mean? But it's just, I've been better at just kind of coming to terms, especially now that I'm reaching my mid-20s, like mid-20s now. I'm just like, well, you know what? Like, I'm just going to continue to use my 20s as the time to continue to learn, continue to grow, and really create a good foundation for myself. Because once I reach 30, I want to have already kind of the rest of my future already planned out. And that could change, everything changes, but I think from now till I'm 30, I'm very hopeful of where I will be at in terms of like me wanting to do more videography stuff, me continuing to improve the podcasting experience here, as well as just continuing to making good connections and meeting a lot of great people. So yeah.
And something that I love how you brought all that up, and adding on to it is asking our audience, like, how, think of your experience back when you were in high school or early college and your experience going through it, and then after, and really setting goals for yourself is big, because when you start hitting that transition, the reason why we have Tay is, that transitional age, it can be really hard to navigate, and I'll be happy to explain it. And it's that, yes, we go to school. We need the basics, reading, writing, communicate, all of that. But there's something that we're not really educated on, and it's where I draw the line, where I'm like, I don't like the education system, because we're not really taught to live. We're more being prepped for work, being ready, professional.
But we're being prepped for work that we're not even really even maybe ready for or even know all about.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Just kind of like, they're like, this is how a resume, all of that stuff. But they don't really teach us how to live. And what I mean by that is, like, when you start into an old, like 18-ish, or you're out of high school, or maybe even for a few, you start knowing what bills are. You start knowing what responsibilities are.
I think the big thing there is that I think throughout our whole like not public school, but all of our youth like education, so like elementary to high school, I think the biggest thing, like just encapsulating what you're saying, is that there's a lot of hand holding throughout that entire process. Like there's a lot of like resources, and the teachers are there to support you as much as you can. But once you turn 18, right, once you turn into a legal adult, I feel like there's just they just put, okay, you're a legal adult. Here, you're on your own, basically, right?
And there should be more preparation, and I think there's a thing about it where your youth, you shouldn't worry about all those stuff. Agreed, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't be knowledgeable in it. And so, for me, one of the biggest things that I've had to, it wasn't a big surprise. I knew it was coming, but also, you can feel a difference, and it's that responsibility of, being on your own. I'm very grateful I live at home still. But, I pay rents with my family, but it's not a huge amount. But I know I'm still, you're not mentally prepared when you're doing work or you're doing stuff and you're like, oh man, that is taken away. You
know what's interesting? I actually saw an article. I don't have a source for it, but I remember I saw an article, and I feel like it is pretty accurate, that the this generation, so the people in their mid-20s, actually it's like more than 50% that live with their parents,
especially now.
And it's like that's the highest it's been in like years, because usually back then, like let's say, I think it goes back to like 15 years or something, 15 years ago, there was a lot less people in their 20s living with their parents. Like there were more living, but now, like right now, there's more than 50 still living with their parents.
It's just the different, and I don't know, there's a lot of just everything is just money here, money there, money here, money there. It really is, and which is why I'm really emphasizing with transitional age youth. If you're from 16, to 25, it's to really, really get knowledgeble on a lot of topics on like how do you file your taxes? Why do you file taxes? Getting knowledgeable on these things so that when you're going through it, you're a little bit more prepared and you're not hit by a rock out of nowhere. And that's kind of, growing up is being on your own, not just on the financial part, but, at least for me, probably even during high school, like my brother and I, we were more responsible of like doing your own laundry, doing like certain tasks that normally you would, a parent or someone or guardian would be doing. But as you grow up older, it's a lot of things that you got to do on your own.
Yeah. And with that said, I actually wanted to ask another follow-up question here is like, as we've been growing up, right? So I'm thinking high school over here. So since graduating high school and between high school and now, what has come up as a surprise in life that you weren't expecting? So like what I mean, or like a feeling that you weren't expecting as you were growing up, like they were like just something. So for example, for me,
okay,
yeah, for example, for me, when I stopped going to school, like when I graduated from college, it felt so interesting to just not have to, like after work, just not have to worry about homework or not worry about having any like responsibilities with school or have to attend a class. Like I have a whole day basically dedicated to just my work, and then I can basically create my own personal schedule. Like that to me was a big change that I didn't really expect how it was going to play out, but I just kind of figured out on my own, and I'm like, oh, this is really great. I'm actually really grateful that I'm able to have a full-time job where I can be flexible and I can like just, again, be here full-time and not have to worry about school. Because I'm with you. I did enjoy going to school for 4 years, but it's like that's it for me right now. Like I'm not interested in going back to school anytime soon because I just want more real-world experience, right? And all respects to people that go, get their bachelor's and then right after get a master's, and especially doctors who like spend so much time in school.
It's a really long
process. I'm just like, more power to you guys, but I can't be in school for that long because I'm a creative person, so I want to be out in the world or be out with people and just, again, continue to grow my own personal skills, my own creative skills on my own, and just have the school. It did help as a guide for me. It did help kind of like push me, but now I'm pushing myself even more than I think school could have ever had for me right now. That's what I wanted to mention.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
What is something that really shocked me?
And it could be something. I mean, we could start as simple as like taxes. We weren't doing taxes when we were in high school. No, we do taxes now.
Taxes. Right off the bat, I am very lucky that I get to experience two worlds doing, as an employee and also as a business owner. And right away, I realized the difference between the two and where I want to fit in. Taxes as an employee, there's very little you can do with it. There's very little wiggle room that you have. Taxes as a business owner it's a very different. And the way I understood it is that when you're an employee, the IRS or the government is the only one in charge. It's the only partner, basically. But when you're a business owner, there's two people running a business, right? So it's two partners. It's the government and you. And so as a business owner, you can kind of negotiate in a way. And you can tell your business partner, but this is what's going on. This is what the expenses are. This is everything. So then you can kind of adjust. And that's where you hear a lot of tax write-offs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you're in a partnership with the government in a way. Yeah. That's kind of how I understood it. But as an employee, you can't do much. If they take away money, they take away money. If they give money to you, great. If not, that was a huge thing for me because I knew what an employee is, and I know what a business owner looks like as well. So I get to see both worlds, but the taxes part really surprised me. Because to me, and to anyone who's going to do their taxes this year, you'll see that let's say you make $30 an hour, right? The reality is sometimes you're making only $25 an hour.
Yeah.
On paper, it may look $30 an hour, but if you take away the taxes that they take away from your paycheck, you're really earning around $25 an hour. So if you're earning $25 an hour, sometimes you're earning only $20 an hour, meaning that's the money that you actually get.
Wow.
So for me, when I saw those numbers, that really did surprise me, because I was like, how is that possible? And the more I thought about it, I said, I'm single. I don't have kids. I don't have a partner I'm living with. It makes it easier for me, right? I might have challenges with like not getting everything I want. But when I think about families, I'm like, man, that's a huge cut. And that really surprised me as growing up. I'm like, okay, so a lot of the money I'm making sometimes is not really going towards my pocket. It's going towards, the IRS.
Yeah. Unfortunately, but yeah.
Which is why I really suggest for everyone, it doesn't matter how old you are, to understand how taxes work. Because if you understand it, it's a lot easier for you to understand what you can do with your money, and that goes with, now I know that, for example, in my income, I have to take money out and say, this is for savings, this is the money I can waste, this is for bills, and this is for taxes.
And my 401k.
Yeah, and so there's so many things that when I saw that did take me at a surprise, because I was like, man, I feel like in a way I was kind of lied to, because I'm like, oh man, I make, $30 an hour, but I only get 20 what would be $25 an hour, know? So those are things that you kind of start seeing when you're growing up, and also paying taxes. Like, people sometimes don't understand why you need to pay taxes. And that can be a
helps
shock.
Pay for a lot of stuff around us.
So that's why I really suggest that. Study taxes. How do you can understand it more.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing, Santi. I wanted to add real quick that I think that for me, the biggest change and the biggest thing that I've seen really happen to me in my life that I wasn't really expecting to really like catch me by surprise is just how many people I know now that are married, or that have kids, or that have maybe fallen down a really bad path. Like, that's the other sad thing, is like I just get to see all these people, especially since I've been in Marin like literally my whole life so far. It's like I've seen people come and go, you know what I mean? Like, people that I knew in high school, I see them either they're married, like I said, they're married, they have kids, or they're drug addicts and they're just out in the street, which is really sad to see. But that's like a thing that takes me by surprise, but at the same time is like, it's just part of life.
Yeah, and I'll kind of add on to that based on working with the community and seeing a lot of things within my circle as well, is the pressure of what becoming an adult looks like. And that can cause a lot of pressure and confusion. Like I said, taxes is one, but the bills can be another. And when you're not mentally prepared, a lot of what happens is people feel a lot of pressure, a lot of confusion when you're in your,
and when there's no guidance.
Yeah, when you're 16, either and really when you're transitioning from 16 to in your 30s, sometimes you really don't know what you want to do, and that can feel very scary. It can feel very alone. Yeah, and it's hard for people to say, like, I don't really know what I want to do, which leads to finding ways to not feel alone, and that can be substances, and it can lead to unfortunate cases where we have a lot of youth involved in using alcohol or drugs, and takes them to a completely other path. So our goal here is also to share with you guys that it's not as easy as it seems, but if you prepare yourself, you are more prepared, and you can be stronger when a rock comes and you're like, oh wait, I know, you can navigate it a little bit better.
And a big part of it is also the relationship with the parents.
Yes.
Which we will talk about in just a bit. We're actually going to take a quick break. We're going to go ahead and play Soul Purpose by our good friend Evolving Wings, and we will be right back.
Yeah. Evolving Wings. Yo. I'm a genius, original purpose, resurrect like the phoenix. From the mother lotus emerges, no longer feel worthless. To be a service to purpose, it's evolving wings por vida. Got them all like Nita, internal bleeding the brain got me insane. Explain the pain, the seats pain. My soul wounded, some moves can't be computed. God's great shadows meet the darkest alley. Demons came for me, but archangels parried. Swift swings shut the souls rapidly. Call it horror meets fantasy. Lower energies move like cavities. Sucker MCs, no substance. Ignore the earth's cry. Sucker MCs, no substance. Don't realize we never die. Misguided by subsidized lies. I'm guided by my ancestors' war cries. Borga floor spitting truth for courage in your spine. Evolving wings manifesting your divine. Don't give up, fly. Compassionate can't pay my soul purpose. Wings up, wings up, wings up, wings up. Compassionate can't pay my soul purpose. Wings up, wings up, wings up, wings up. Compassionate can't pay my soul purpose. Wings up, wings up, wings up. Compassionate can't pay my soul purpose. Wings up, wings up.
All right. Well, we hope that you enjoyed that little snippet of Soul Purpose by Evolving Wings. Again, you can check out his music on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, all the streaming platforms. You can find Evolving Wings' music. I did want to do a quick announcement that open mic nights are back here at the Multicultural Center of Marin. Thank you to everyone who attended last month's open mic night. It was actually a lot of fun. It was a good time. And again, it's just a good place to just meet new people, kind of sing, do poetry, share whatever art. You have dance, and it's great. So yeah, we have the open mic nights every last Friday of the month here at MCM. Our upcoming one is on March 29th, which is in about 2 weeks, and it's from 6 to 8 p.m. There is free pizza and drinks, and we hope to see you guys there if you can make it. But yeah, so kind of transitioning into our next topic. Santi, did you actually want to introduce this topic here?
What do I say? Part of the change that happens, not only financially, and kind of understanding, it. How do I explain this? There's also a change that can happen with the independence in our lives, and a lot of it has to do with our parents or our guardians. Meaning, before, your parents would make choices for you, right? But then you come at a time where you start making your own decisions, and there's multiple scenarios, and again, we're going to speak from our experiences.
Yeah.
But there's scenarios where either the parent has a hard time understanding that, and you can't make decisions a lot on your own,
right? Or
it's hard for you to understand that, and it's hard for you to make decisions because you expect your parents to make decisions,
right?
Or scenarios where you didn't have anyone, and you've always been that way. So there's many ways, but what I can say is it's definitely a challenge, and you definitely, I think it can be very, very hard for the parent and the child, because you don't want to break a relationship, you want to strengthen it, right? But setting boundaries, understanding that you're an adult can be really,
exactly.
really hard.
I think I think it's really hard for. No, thank you for sharing, and I didn't mean to cut you off quickly there, but I think that for me, a big part of it is that we're both Latino. We're both from a Latino background, and Latino parents tend to be a bit more like want to keep the kids at home, or be more like protective of their kids, as opposed to. I mean, I'm sure it's the same with other nationalities as well, but what I've seen with Americans, specifically like all American families, is that they're a lot more chill about like their kids going out, or their kids, living by themselves, or living with their girlfriends and all that stuff. Like, a lot of that stuff is a big deal in Latino households. So I just want to emphasize that.
Yeah,
too.
I can give an example is for a lot of, and American families, it can be very different for everyone. But usually here in America, maybe that's the term, in America, the way it's kind of sectioned out is that when you turn 18, you kind of go to college, you move out, you live in dorms, blah, blah, blah. But in Latino households, it's not necessarily that way. A lot of adults still live with their parents until they're like 28, 27, or they leave as well. But it's very different, and that can cause a lot of challenges when you want to do something different.
Yeah.
Or if you still live at home and trying to make your own decisions. It can get really challenging, and that's kind of what we're trying to share with you guys. Maybe some ideas or tips that we've used, or kind of our experiences, so you don't feel alone, and if you're going through something like that.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree with you. And looking at our first question here about like how has your relationship with your parents evolved as we've been going into adulthood? Personally, for me, what I found is that since I think maybe you can speak for this too, but for me, the biggest change was me being to like just getting a car. That was my first taste of independence, was just having my car, because that gave me freedom to go literally anywhere I want. Because before, like as a kid, I got my license pretty late. I got my license right as I turned 18, because I didn't want to do the test and have a permit and then have to do it again. All that. I just want to do it at 18 so I could just get it all done quickly. And once I got my car, I just felt so much more like, wow, look at that. I literally have this whole area to explore now. Like I can explore anywhere now. Like that's how I felt, you know what I mean? And that's how I still feel. Because now with the car, like, I can just kind of go wherever I want after work. I can go meet up with friends. I can go meet new people. Like, you know what I mean? Like I just get so much freedom from just the fact that I'm able to drive a car. And that has also caused me to come home much later at night. Like I get home sometimes at like 12 or 1 in the morning. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't have been able to do that, but my parents were a bit reluctant about like me coming so late. But then once I started like telling them, you know what I mean, like I tend to be out with my friends a lot later at night. It's the only time I really get to see them, because I work. So I work, from the morning till like the evening. So it's like the only time I really have for a social life. So that's why I'm out so late. But yeah, I just wanted to start by adding that. If you want to add to
I'd love to. That's very interesting, because I think I also felt that as well. I think for me, this is very tricky for me, because I think my parents have always been involved in my decision making. I always
what kind of decision making?
A lot, really. I always seek guidance from them. I think because for me, ultimately I can make the final decision, but I will always go to my parents and ask them, like, I'm going through this, or I'm at this state, and I just want to hear from you. And it's very interesting, because both my parents have very different takes on it, and it can be that way. One of my parents is more, go do it on your own. My other parent is more involved and more like, they want their opinions to be heard, and totally understandable. And it can be, we've managed to really build a great relationship, but I can see if that were to happen to someone else, where it can be really tricky, but in my case, I feel like I've, when I say like I'm going on a trip, I decide to go on the trip. They're totally fine with it. I think their only requests are like, who are you going with? What are you doing? Which I feel like that's a very fair thing to ask.
Yeah.
But that's something definitely that made me feel more independent, is making decisions on my own. So for example, I went on to in LA this past weekend, and they were going as well, but I chose a different way of going. And being little, I don't think I had that choice.
You always have to just go with them.
You always have to go with them and be kind of, but this time I was like, you know what, I want to try a different experience. I want to experience how this goes. And I said, hey, I'm gonna catch you guys up this way. And that's a huge thing for me, making those decisions and feeling like, oh, I can make those decisions on my own. But there's bigger things that I always seek guidance for them, just because I feel like they have experience in a lot of things. And maybe I don't have to necessarily go with what they say, but I can, based on what they've experienced, I can make choices on my own, which is why I said it has to be, as a parent and a child, you have to really work at that, because I can see where if you go ask for something, it's like it can seem as you're asking permission rather than asking for advice, right? So it can be very complicated. And school-wise, I think I've always been on my own on that. My parents, my mom only went to 5th grade and my dad as well. And coming here to the U.S., like they didn't know very well about the
school system or how it even worked here.
Yeah, and the language barrier, the cultural barrier, it can be really tricky. Yeah. But I always felt like I was on my own a lot, and I had to seek support in different areas, especially when college came.
Yeah.
That's something like I really took on my own and said, okay, well, what is financial aid? How does that work? Scholarships and et cetera, et cetera. And my parents always said, not that we don't want to help you, it's just we don't know how.
Yeah.
So
it caused you to find a lot of the resources on your own.
Yeah. And that really set me to be more independent. That really helped me to seek for help, ask for help, and same thing here with MCM. My parents had a lot to do with it. Their support absolutely was everything. But at the end of the day, I don't take the full credit of me being here, because I believe in God. So I always say God has his plans. But at the end of the day, I got here on my own. It wasn't through my parents necessarily. And so that's why I say that I think my relationship with being independent with like school and professional education, I was at a really young age. I already had started doing it because my parents really couldn't do it,
One thing I want to add is, again, talking about like how your parents tend to, at least my parents, and I'm sure your parents too, is just, again, enforcing kind of rules and enforcing like, okay, you can't stay out too late during this time, blah blah blah, right? We've all been there. We've all been in those situations.
I still have that. I have curfew.
And here's the thing though.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I still kind of personally still am trying to figure out as well, and I don't think I'll ever really figure out until I'm a parent myself, is the fact that parents, I feel, sometimes don't realize, okay, how were you when you were my age? What were you doing when I was my age?
I see,
right?
I see.
And then whenever I bring that up, they're like, well, that was a different time. I'm just like, but it's because, again, they have the obviously they were doing very similar things to what I was doing, like wanting to stay out late, wanting to be out with friends. Like that's what they were doing during my age. At least that's, what my parents were, and what a lot of my uncles and aunts have told me. But but like I said, it's something. I think there's something that happens when you become a parent that it creates like this other side of your brain where you're like, okay, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about your future now. So I think that's kind of what happens. But again, I don't fully understand it because I'm not a parent myself.
And that's maybe something really important that we're bringing up, that there's a lot of things that our parents enforce that we might find it challenging to understand because we're not a parent or we're not in their position. Maybe that's something that's really good to keep in mind. I mean, for me, I'm 22 years old. In theory, I can be out and do a lot of things, but my mom has very, very strict rules. One of them is like, you can't come in whatever time you want in the house, especially if you live under my roof. That's a big, big thing.
Yeah.
Which I understand. When it comes to work, though, she's very understandable. Like, oh, if I come in at home, because we've had events where it ends super late.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so I can't just like I gotta go home.
But it's like tends to be easier to be, at least let me know. Like, does it tend to be easier for you to come home later if it's a work related thing?
I think I feel in peace. I think it's a not feeling guilty thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain that. It's like, if I know I was at work, then I'm like, they have to understand it was work.
Yeah.
But if I was having like hanging out with friends and stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like 2 a.m, I gotta go. I feel like I wouldn't come. I feel like I'm probably nervous.
Yeah.
Because, and again, we've talked about this with my parents. I think that's also an important thing for you guys. If you're, if there's room for that to communicate and ask. My mom's biggest thing is her worry about, what if something happens? And her thing is also like, I know she trusts us and all, but it can be, who you're hanging out with. And I think she's less involved in that now. when we were kids, I feel like your parents knew kind of who you were hanging out with, who you talked to, and because you would go to school and you would see who. But now, like, you're kind of doing your own thing, and now it's like my mom doesn't know a lot of people, or both my parents don't know a lot of people who I'm working with or what I'm doing. And it's when I meet them, like, oh, mom, this is this, or dad, this is this and this. So they get to meet them a lot. Our circle is not. They don't know our circle very, very well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that actually brings up my other question for you. And I'll actually start by putting some context here. Is like, so you have 4 brothers, right? Sorry.
3.
3 brothers. Okay. So you have 3 brothers, but all of them are at different ages.
Yes.
Right. But they were all at some point under the same, or you're probably living under the same roof with 2 of your brothers right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a whole other dynamic there, because your parents are treating you one way, but I'm sure they treat your brother and your younger brother, your 2 younger brothers, much differently.
Absolutely.
And that's
even if my mom doesn't agree with it.
And that's something that I don't really know too much about, because I grew up with a brother, but unfortunately my brother passed away and I didn't get to experience really living that dynamic, or I wasn't old enough to really understand the dynamics, that like seeing how my parents would treat my brother when he was alive and myself during that time, because I was so young. So I've always kind of I've grown up kind of like an only child, but it's been interesting because I feel like it's always so interesting to hear from my other friends about like, oh yeah, my mom didn't let me go, but he let my little brother go. It's like blah, blah, blah. Or like other things where they say like, oh, they put all the blame on the little brother, so I usually don't have to. And then there's like another friend who takes care of her little sisters. And she's like, I wasn't put into this position of taking care of my little sisters. That's the position that my parents should be doing, is they should be the ones taking care of my little sisters, not me. Mm-hmm. But since I'm the oldest sister, I'm the one taking care of them. Mm-hmm. So it's just always, to me, it's always been really interesting to observe all the different ways in which like siblings interact with their, with your guys' parents. So like, yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to add there about like, again, I guess starting off with how differently do your parents treat your brothers, or what have you seen as you've been growing up?
I'm going to exclude my older brother on this because he's actually my dad's younger brother, but we grew up in the same household for most of our lives.
Yeah.
But I'm going to talk to more of like my parents, like kids.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest, and that means that I was their first experience at parenting, and there was a lot of things that they were new to, and there's a lot of things that they learned from raising me. And also my experience is that they left me when I was 2 and came here with my brother. And then they had a different experience with him because they were like, oh, we've already had a daughter and stuff, but they have a different culture that they're here.
Yeah.
And then there's the younger one. And when we were all here, there's a lot of different, and this is also something that really was really hard for me to understand. And I went up to my mom a lot of times and said, hey, how come you treat me this way and you treat my brother this way?
Yeah.
And I always complain about it because I felt like sometimes it felt like she liked my brother more than she liked me.
Well, what I've seen, and I've seen a lot of memes about this, again, I don't know how true it is, but I just tend to see a lot of like memes about like, okay, when the older brother says, oh, can I stay out late? The mom's like, oh, see, yes, don't worry. Yeah, you're good. Mm. And then when the sister tries to ask the same, it's like, oh, no, you're not going to go out. You know what I mean? That just being more loose with rules on the male than the female.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other thing too, and it adds on to it is I am the oldest, but I am a girl. And I get treated a little bit different than my brother because I'm a girl. Especially my parents are worried a lot of more things, and that can kind of get in the way sometimes when you're trying to be independent. Because you're it can be work thing, but sometimes my dad's calling me or my mom's calling me, which I get. I don't complain about it, but it can be very tricky because I'm like, I'm at work.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they panic and like, why aren't you not answering? What's going on? And I'm like, I'm working. But with my brother, they're a little bit more lenient because he's a guy, and they feel like I don't know what it is, just an instinct maybe that, oh, he's a guy, he can take care of himself.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think it can be very dangerous too, because I feel that both boy and girl need some of both worlds, right? A strict and also understanding.
There needs to be a balance. It can't just
Absolutely. And then also the little one. I mean, the little one is kind of like, this is how I get it. Their first child is kind of you learning how to be a parent. The second child is you understanding, fixing what you didn't do. And the third one is kind of you getting it at times. And that kind of feels like what has happened with my family. And I've learned as a daughter to really not take it as you love him more than you love me. I've also understand that being an older sister means I got older responsibilities. I got other things and kind of balancing that out. And again, my mom disagrees when I tell her you treat us differently. But she does. And I think every parent does. It's just understanding how it's different times that your parents raised you. You know, my 15-year-old mom, when she raised me versus my 29-year-old mom raising, the little one, they're different ages, different stages. So, it's very different. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thank you for sharing that. Like I said, I don't really have that perspective, but that really helps me understand more about what you've been going through. And, it seems like a lot of it just comes down to just these older values that our parents carry throughout, like what they were taught and now what they're using. And again, like I really love that what you said about how the first kid was like figuring things out, second kid is like kind of polishing what we did, and third one's like we know what we're doing, right?
Yeah, it's very different. And again, I do my best now to understand them and to not break our relationship, because I think a lot of the things that, how they grew up is very different from how I grew up here, especially culturally.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to set boundaries and trying to be an adult, but also keep a good relationship with your parents, it can be very tricky for a lot of people, because, some parents, it's hard for them to let go. And be like, and you're trying to do something, you're trying to leave, and it's like them not wanting you to leave. It can be really tricky. The one thing I can say is understand them. And it's hard to do that because you're not a parent, but understanding them and also understanding how you feel and communicating with that. I'm a big believer on communicating with that. If your parents or guardians don't understand that, you did your part to communicate how you were feeling. And also knowing and really doing your best to understand them.
Yeah.
Because that way you can build a better relationship. And there are things maybe they won't really get, and you just gotta be like, okay, now I know that I don't need to bring those things up or stuff like that. So that it's really important, our relationship with our parents.
It really does shape you, because again, if you don't have a good relationship with your parents, I feel like again it can be tough on you as you're growing up. And I totally want to acknowledge that, because I totally get it. Some people just don't have good relationship with their parents, period. And again, my respects to you guys, and I know that's tough. It's really, really tough. But again, I'm just for me, I do love my parents. I think everyone loves their parents. Well, depending on what situation you might find yourself in, but I just am fascinated by, again, hearing all these dynamics that you've been telling me about, and also comparing it to like where I'm at right now, because my parents, they've gotten a lot more looser with me over time. I think definitely when I got out of high school, they were still like, okay, what, you're gonna go to school, right? You're going to school. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to school, but I don't really like it that I had to go to school forcefully. You know what I mean? Like, to a certain extent, I felt like I was kind of forced into school, but at the same time, I was like, I needed to do the work anyway, so it was fine with me. But I think after I graduated, my parents were really like, okay, now you got to do your master's. And I'm like, whoa, wait. I just finished getting my bachelor's degree. I'm not feeling school right now. Personally, I'm not getting my master's degree anytime soon. Maybe it's something I can do maybe when I'm 30, but right now I am not thinking about a master's degree. And that makes them angry. You know what I mean? It makes them feel like what, but what do you, like having a higher education is so much better. And like, you're just like, sure, that could work for some people. And I'm sure it can help. But I think for what I'm doing, for my creativity's sakes and my, you know, what I'm trying to get into, I don't really need a master's degree for that. I really don't. And sometimes it's hard for them to understand that, I think.
Yeah. And you bring up a very important point as well, is doing things for you
and not for them.
Yes. Never do something for someone else, because you will lose that drive and you'll forget why you're doing it. And if it's something that you really want to do for you and that the outcome is also something that they love, it's great. You know, and that's something that ties in with what I said in the beginning about me dropping out of college. It's my mom's dream to have one of her kids graduate, or you know, it's just something that she's always dreamed of. And I talked with her about it, and I told her, and I said, this is how I'm feeling. And I was really, really, really scared to have that conversation, because not because of her getting mad or angry. I wasn't scared. That I was scared of letting her down. And that was a huge thing for me and both my parents, but mainly my mom, because I guess she was more advocate about her kids going to college.
Yeah.
But we had that conversation, and we were very clear, her and I, where she said, if you want to do it for you. Don't do it for me. Because if you do it for me, at one point, if you're ready to give up, you're just going to be thinking about me. When in reality, you should be thinking about you. So in anything you do, I really suggest that think about why you want to do it. And don't point at someone else, but think about why you want to do it. You know, how does that affect you? And then the outcomes, in most cases, are going to be the people around you.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I again, like, I've kind of come to that. Even when I was in college, I was like, okay, I'm doing this for myself. Like, I know it's going to make my parents happy, but at the same time, I'm not going to college just for my parents to like approve. I'm going to college because I actually need to learn something.
Yeah.
So I take back what I said. I know I kind of contradicted myself earlier, but I just was not good with my words there. But like I said, I actually, like I said, I felt like I was forced into college, but at the same time, I wasn't, just because I know I needed to go to college to at least figure out where I'm at right now. Because again, I wasn't really sure, like, creatively where I wanted to be. But then after college, after meeting, I think the biggest thing for college for me was meeting all the people there. All the connections that I made in college were vital to where I'm at now.
If you don't mind, I'm going to kind of touch in on what you kind of were trying to say. And a lot of it is, you want to go to college. And in most times, your family has this idea of you taking on a career like being a doctor, lawyer. And in times, it's, you want to go to college, but it's not exactly what they have in mind.
Right.
Like for me, it's like, I wanted to go to college, but I wanted to do art. I wanted to do photography. And it was like, for a lot of people, it's like, photography? Why would you go to school for photography? You can be a doctor, a lawyer. It pays better, you know, and all that stuff. So
it's great that you're mentioning that, because I have this very good friend of mine who's very successful social media, like, influencer. And I remember she was telling me that when she was going to college, she's going to college for art right now. And she was telling me how, for her, it was really, really tough for her parents to accept it, that she was just going to college for art, because they felt like it was a waste of time or like it's something. But it's like, but she's doing it because she knows that's what she loves to do. And she already has somewhat of a following, and she's going to continue to grow that following. So again, I think I said, Glenda mentioned this actually, I think on our last show, was that she does things for herself. She doesn't like taking orders from other people. She likes doing things that will like for herself, will help her grow and will actually take her and advance her and make her happy, you know, ultimately make her happy.
Yeah, when you have that intention, it definitely does something when you're actually practicing it. You're doing it because you have a reason, and that I think the big drive that everybody talks about, like, it's the why. Why are you doing this? When you have your why very, very clear, and it might not be clear at the beginning, but you have a sense of why it is, then it's a lot harder for you to drop it.
Yeah.
Because your why is so big, you know? And so if you go to college and you have your, why are you doing this for my parents? It can be really, really tricky if it's not something deeper at times.
Right.
Or it can be your parents. And it's great too, but making sure that you're doing it for yourself and the outcome is of your parents as well.
Well, thank you very much, Santi. We're actually unfortunately out of time. But again, thank you for sharing. We hope that you all enjoyed our conversation here and transitioning into adulthood. And just again, I'm a firm believer that things will end up working out. Things will you'll just continue to figure things out in life. And again, we appreciate you all for listening. Thank you all for your support, and we will catch you